drinks for sale as well as organic coffee. There's also a big jug of butter if you need butter inside. And then our products are organic CBD and medicinal mushrooms, things like that. They're all 20% off for HD conference participants. So have a look around when you're done if you feel called. And yeah, enjoy yourselves. I'll turn it over to you, ladies.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you. Yeah, and so I want to, before we get started, want to make sure we're recording. Just a little bit more housekeeping. Like, we are about to enjoy these delicious drinks from our host venue, and enjoy yourselves, because I think these are going to be delicious. They're full of CBD. I hope I am functional while I do this. I'm just joking. It's CBD. I won't be dysfunctional. I'm going to actually take a sip. Oh, that is amazing, actually. Right, so welcome to our talk on nine-centered business and, business beyond 2027. So we've been kind of having this discussion amongst ourselves, Zora and I, just so you know, I'm Adrienne Roach. I am a 1-3 ego manifester. I have the ego center and the throat, and that's about it. Hey there. And she's my daughter, but she's my business partner.
Hello, everybody.
Add Zora. And we've been having like this private conversation about like, what is the future of business and what do we see happening as we start to go through the changes for 2027. So everybody's kind of familiar with what's going to happen in 2027? Somewhat? Anybody? Yeah? Because y'all know human design. This is so great. Well, in case you don't know, and we are recording, so we want to make sure that we share this with people who may not know as well. In 2027, there is going to be a shift in the background frequency in which we all live. So we're going from being in the frequency of the cross of planning, and we're going into the frequency of the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And a lot of people have a lot of opinions and ideas about what that means. I've heard a lot of catastrophe thinking, and I'm not a fan. We're a little bit more hopeful. Actually, neither one of us are hopeful because we don't have motivation, hope. But we are actually, the interesting ways that we combine allow us to kind of like just go down some exploratory storytelling ideas about what really could be happening when we're looking at this shift in the frequency. So I want to take you guys way back, and jump in, honey.
I'm standing in front of me. I'm trying to sit.
Come on, you want to? I gotta sit down because
join me.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so to jump in, first, what we want to talk about is setting context for what a shift like this could look like. So we're actually going to go back to 4,565 BCE, which was the last time that there was a transition from the cross of planning to the cross of the super phoenix. So we're going to talk about kind of what this looks like. This is the Bronze Age, and this is the rise of the dynasty. This is when China and Egypt are both on the rise. And to be more specific about why Egypt started to come onto the rise. So basically leading up to the transition into the sleeping phoenix, the Sahara Desert was actually a grassland. It was mostly pastoral people with their herds of animals, because this is the rise of animal husbandry and domestication. A lot of things got domesticated in this time. This is when you get a lot of our staple foods: rice, corn, squash, beans. We are setting the foundation for what humanity is going to need to boom in population. And this is also when we start to get sedentary living, because the Sahara grasslands are desiccated. They turn into the Sahara Desert. And the people who were living this pastoral lifestyle moved, the majority of them, to the Nile. And that was what allowed for the Egyptian dynasty to rise, the two kingdoms. This was happening all over the world. So in America, this is when you find your first, they're called bison jumps. Basically, Plains Indian people would be able to drive bisons basically to where they would be hunted. and they were called bison jumps. So you're getting bison jumps. So you're getting a lot of the establishment of the relationship between humans, plants, and animals. So you're getting writing. You're getting writing. Writing is super important because that's the only way that we even know that there were people who were establishing where we will later get contracts as we go into the process of the Phoenix. So this is not a catastrophe. This is simply a change. It's an opportunity, and this is a chance for us as humans to adapt to what's coming next.
Yeah, so this is what we talk about at home.
I want to come over.
Right, this is like chatter, I suppose.
Just dinner conversation.
Just dinner conversation, absolutely. So like, we're gonna move it back, come forward a bit. A lot. Yeah. So the last time we went from the previous cross into the cross of planning was around 1615, and that was when the cross of planning got started. And it's really interesting because a lot of interesting things started happening right around that time. 1619, roughly, you're getting the first chattel slaves in America, and it's not the prior form of slavery that you got from conquering and then just taking over a people, because there began to be the rise of what is some of the features of the cross of planning, and we're going to go over some of those. But when you take slavery and incorporate it into a profit model, now we have a different reason to enslave people, rather than spreading ideology or
creating more people.
Yeah, creating more people, making your kingdom larger, or this is has a different plan behind it, right? Cross of planning. So, basically, there was some difficulty in the Americas of getting the native people to go along with being slaves. This was their land; they were super familiar, so there had to become a plan to get people from somewhere else to bring them to a foreign place, so that they would be so disoriented that they could be taken advantage of. And to us, that is part of kind of the earmarks of the cross of planning. We're going to bring it forward so you can understand it in more of a modern context.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm trying to see the dates. Can you slowly say the dates so I can maybe write them down, because I'm having a hard time.
Oh yeah, and one, we're going to have a recording of this, but two, we might have a slideshow that goes along with it.
Does it go between these two, cross the planning, Phoenix? Or something?
Yeah, well, yeah. So the cycles are always kind of in an order, and there's a chart that'll show you the order, but it's always from planning to the cross of Phoenix.
Always, okay.
And so, but the last time we entered into the cross of planning was 1615.
And that was from the cross of consciousness?
Yes, that was from the
and then
consciousness.
before that, cross of rulership.
You're like really good at this with your brain.
I'm a history major and a 6'2". So.
Oh
yes.
Hey guys!
Yeah, we're
Yes,
gonna invite you over for a conversation. So, what we kind of thought about is like, this was actually the domestication of humans. The domestication of humans through the two emergent centers that mark us from going from 7-center to 9-center. Does anybody here know what the two centers that emerged were? Close.
The soul and the ego.
The spleen and the ego. But yeah, so a lot of times I've heard all sorts of weird rumors about how it was the solar plexus, and that's not true. The spleen was more of a minor chakra, right? It didn't have that much of a role, but no. Well, yes, that part, yes. But the
spleen broke off from the solar plexus.
Something like that. The spleen might have been
They were together because they used to kill people that pissed them off.
Exactly. It used to drive their literal immune system when they
Right.
would get angry or upset.
Exactly.
It could drive an entire war,
100%. And that's the thing. When you get the split, a lot of it becomes that the spleen is becoming more of a social immune system.
You jumped ahead a little bit.
Okay,
I'll bring it back.
Okay, bring it back.
So because there's important dates that are associated between 7-centered and 9-centered, at least to me. So we've got this 1615 date where we enter the cross of planning, and there are a couple of events that I just want to talk about. I think that in addition to the establishment of chattel slavery, there's the Salem witch trials. It's a very interesting. There's a very interesting history around the Salem witch trials that I think is really emblematic of the transition into the cross of planning. For one, it's kind of thought of as the moment that theocracy died, like the idea that you can run a society with religion being like the main sticking point of where the power comes from. Because during the Salem witch trials, you had this phenomenon of individuals leveraging the power of the state against their enemies. This was usually a privilege that only royalty really had the ability to do. Like, prior to this point, it was royalty leveraged their power, which was usually ordained by God, over their subjects. This was there was a setup to the Salem witch trials. Like, there was a lot of power being exchanged, power being taken from the king and given to magistrates, basically, theocratic leaders who were going through trials. There's like a public trial where people can come and sit in and watch their fellow citizen be judged by the state, right? And the Salem witch trials were triggered, at least from some people's opinion, by two things. One, there was a lot of interpersonal strife within the community. One of the people, Sarah Good, was one of the first 3 people who was accused of being a witch, and apparently she was not very well favored amongst the populace in Salem because she had remarried to an indentured servant, and they thought that basically she had her own motives basically for going through with this marriage. And I don't think it's a coincidence that she was married to an indentured servant. This is like, you got slaves, you got an indentured servant. They're very close, very similar, and it puts her in the same class. And also, she's a woman. It's like, these are all very important factors. It puts her in the same class as another one of the people who was accused of being a witch, Tituba. Tituba was a woman from basically where, like, modern day Cuba, I forget what they're called, like the Indies? West Indies, yes. She was a slave from the West Indies, and there was a racial component to the Salem witch trials. Basically, there was a lot of talk from the people of Salem, like, oh, the native people believe in the devil and witchcraft. It really feels like the cross of planning and the racial component of class really gets established and pressed hard into the culture. So that's 1692. And then, as we move forward into 1760, this is the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And 1781, Uranus gets found. And this is the moment where we transition from a 7-centered being to a 9-centered being. And this is also when we introduce projectors into the mix. It's a very intense, energetic period.
Can I say something about that?
Absolutely, yeah.
So during that time when we get the founding of Uranus, the move from 7-centered to 9-centered is really vehicle only. It's body. It is not about our consciousness. Technically, we're pretty much still 7-centered consciousness riding around in a very advanced vehicle. So just imagine you've got you've got a Ford Escort engine in a Lamborghini. And what we are as a transitional species is we're here kind of trying to bridge the gap between this lack of power being in such a powerful vehicle. So we have to deal with what the 9-centered body is dealing with our lovely 7-centered consciousness. which is, can be very difficult. And I can only imagine during that transition period, it was very difficult. So what does a seven-centered being do with two new shiny centers? It is going to abuse them, right? So when we think about the spleen, we all know about splenic fear. So this is part of how the process of planning's, it's all about timing. It's just seven-centered consciousness in a nine-centered vehicle. It's nobody's fault. Like, it was just a thing that happened. But that becomes part of the methods of moving people, right? We are moving people through fear. We've gathered the people, right? Planning loves gathering the people. And look at our cities. Look at these places that we just gathered the people. And now we can move them with fear, kind of like you move a herd, right? The other part, nice, shiny new ego center. What do you do with that? The fears that go along with the ego center are a multitude. First of all, the ego is about material, so it's definitely striking fear about not having enough. And when you start to
not being enough,
and we're going to look more at some of the gates a little later, but the story that you can tell from the not self version of the ego gates is kind of, it's explaining what we've been living in during this process planning frequency. So yeah, maybe we want to go on that. Well, so actually, let's talk about the centers a little bit. So the splenic, the fears of the spleen, right? We know all of those gates. But when you think about it, like inadequacy, fearing the future, fearing the past, fearing responsibility, fearing other people, the fear of failure, the fear of death or not having purpose, and the fear of authority. So the fear of being subject to authority, but also, taking authority and being your own authority. All of these fears are exploited during the process of planning because if you think about it, the religions that are able to really exert a lot of control, but then it starts to turn into government.
It's in the propaganda. Yeah. It's in the propaganda. If you look back at the propaganda, specifically in relationship to eugenics, because I feel like we need to talk about it, y'all. Eugenics was the attempt to homogenize humanity. It's the attempt to find the Ubermensch, the ultimate man. There is no ultimate man. It's a fantasy, and
a bad one, by the way.
A bad one.
You can just imagine everybody's exactly the same, and then the right disease. You don't want monoculture human.
No, that's how you get the potato famine, but in people. But the fear of the future and the fear of the past. The fear of the past. The language that eugenicists use about other people, savagery, the idea that the past is going to come and take from your present, or the future, the idea that the technology will actually make you less human. It's all a fantasy. You can't actually predict the future. You don't know what the technology is going to actually do to the people. The past isn't something to be afraid of. And it's not, the past and responsibility. The things that happen in the past end up being the present you's responsibility. You love sowing and you hate reaping. You love sowing and you hate reaping. Because you have to take responsibility for reaping what you have sown.
Wow.
The fear of failure. You have to go to college or you're going to be a failure. You have to have a career. You have to work for these corporations or you're going to be a failure. You're going to not have money. When you are enslaved, someone has given you a purpose.
That part.
If you are afraid of not having a purpose, you would rather be enslaved than not have a purpose.
This is important, y'all, because the new cross is going to say something else. Oh, wow. Like, first of all, I didn't know like I live with her, and we've talked about this, but this is very like this is
Confrontational.
This is
It's really
spicy.
uncomfortable. But
Yeah, I told her, I was like, listen, the more uncomfortable the conversation, the more comfy my clothes. I'm in straight up pajamas right now. So yeah.
and then so that's the spleen. But talking about the exploitation of the ego, control, competition, being the best, and solitude. Ego exploitation codifies hierarchy, establishes capitalism, and establishes class dynamics.
Say that again.
Ego exploitation codifies hierarchy, establishes capitalism, and establishes class dynamics. So let me get into it. I'm passionate about it. Okay. So the 21, control. Control over other people. Control over other people's labor. The idea that you can actually like own people. You can have control over the masses.
And you don't have to have slavery for that. We have
Yeah.
corporations. I mean, we just keep changing the way
The
it
structure.
looks,
Yeah, exactly.
but it's the same thing.
Competition or shock, 51. So this is interesting. I know you're a history buff, so are you familiar with shock doctrine? So that you know. Basically, they're competition and shock. So when capitalism and communism clash, and the capitalists wanted to tear down communism, they utilized something called shock doctrine, which essentially was supposed to liberate market economies. And for the most part, I was reading on it today, so let me see if I can conjure it back up. It basically made it so that the resources were extracted from the bottom up. So people who had control over, say, the factories were able to extract labor and resources out of the people who did not own material resources. So that's what I think is living in 51. It's the shock. And it's this idea that competition breeds innovation. Competition does not breed innovation. It pits people against each other.
Yeah, I mean, we know that innovation can come in all sorts of ways. If we think back on some of, the most creative periods in human history, especially the more recent periods, it was collaborative. There wasn't a lot of competition. You'd have the concept of the salon, which I want to have one so bad with people, but like just, putting minds in a room and letting them vibe off each other, doing a couple of mind-altering substances occasionally, some absinthe or something, and then having these conversations where beautiful art and concepts of science and things like that come out. So we know that this is not true, but this is what they tell you to make sure that you adhere to, basically the seven-centered business models. So the other thing about the seven-centered business model, we know that the projector is like the newest type. And so the projectors coming around in the late 1700s, what was making everything move previously is, I would call it like the manifestor power. Now, I'm a manifester, and I've never been able to push anybody around in my lifetime. But I can see the echo, right? That's what karma is, the echo of what came before. And this is partly why some of us have to clean up karma. Who are your transpersonals out here? Cleaning up the karma?
Hey.
Thanks, guys. Because we are just living in the fever dream of the echoes of what came before. And, fear, force, pain, shock, all of these things have been used to move humanity. And we're coming away from that. In 2027, we have to acknowledge individuals. We know what's coming online. If you're not familiar with what gates and channels will be active, one of them is the 3420. That's the pure manifesting generator channel. And that is where thoughts are instantly translated into action. These are people who aren't thinking about what they're about to do. they're in movement. And that's going to be the background frequency, which is just that tightening up of the karmic cycle. None of this, from the cross of planning, it was emotionalized ego, right? And it takes time, it ratchets. It's the thing that allows the stress to build up before people riot. Allows the stress to build up before they have a revolution and cut off some heads.
Is that why they say there's like an 80-year cycle? You've heard that?
Oh, you're talking about the turnings, yeah.
Is that related to what you're
I would say, really, it's really interesting that there's roughly 4 turnings
Right.
inside of this space of time, or like 8 turnings. There's roughly 8 turnings. Yeah, I mean, these are just people's different ways of observing the exact same phenomenon.
Yeah.
I think Rod did it from the more astrological precession of the equinoxes type of viewpoint. That person did it just simply through scientific, watching what happened every 80 years, and you get these 8 turnings, and it's 8. We love that number, don't we, guys? 8 is a good number. It's 64 is what, 8 times 8? Oh yeah.
Do you guys include like the other shift in the sense of going from cross of Maya to cross of penetration? Because like not only are we going to have a sleeping phoenix, we're literally going to have the cross of penetration, which is like we are each shocking, penetrating.
I mean, it even is just, it's even implied inside of Cross of Sleeping Phoenix. The Gate 59 is the aura cracker, right? We are going to be you have the 6 as well?
59.
You got the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got the 6. And I'm like, I don't know what's going to be happening. I've got the 39 as well. So like, I'm just like, okay, what's going to happen, guys? I got the 57. I feel like I'm going to be hooked into this cross. I really feel like I'm already feeling the changes that are happening. So she's talking about like the cross of penetration, but I'll talk first about the Gate 59. It's going to penetrate the other. This is auras opened to one another. So not just the enveloping aura of the generator, but understanding that everybody can pierce into the other. And I always think of it like this. And between that and the 55, like, what happens if I do like something really shitty to you? Right now, I do something shitty to you. I just did something shitty to you.
You don't feel it.
I don't feel it. But we're going to be into a very intimate time when I do something really terrible to you. And possibly I'm feeling it like super fast. 3420s on. I mean, like the response of the entire Maya is going to be what we think. I think it's just going to be fast. Just tightening up that karmic cycle. Like, does anybody else feel like time is going faster?
Yes.
It's on a pony.
Even as a 59-6 with the 39-55, my ability to, in a touch cognition, my ability to process and to turn around and respond in the moment, like I'm not okay with this, that's a huge part of communion.
Yeah.
Like without it, there is no communion. Like, so that's what's missing in this cross, why we can't have communion is the processing response time, the respondability is too slow.
It is. Y'all feel like this, that is.
I was
Were
like,
you like-
so I'm like,
Were you
literally,
at
I'm
the
like,
table with us? Like,
let's go.
come on over. Because, like, seriously, that is a big part of it. So, just moving on, like,
You want to wrap up these last 2 ego gates?
well, yeah, there you go.
Because be the best. Higher. Being the best. Being the one on top. And it's being on top actually gives you a lot of responsibility. One of my favorite things is when people talk about, oh, yeah, the capitalist puts in so much money. They put in capital, and it makes them have all this responsibility. And yet, the majority of the responsibility still falls onto the people who are working for them. The majority, like if you are the person, I was talking about this today. The person at Taco Bell who's making my taco is the most important person in this transaction. I don't even know who owns Taco Bell. I'm pretty sure it's like some conglomerate of multiple fast food chains. I'm completely detached from the CEO who put in whatever capital to make it possible for that very nice person to make my taco. And then solitude. One of the most insidious things I think about how we run our economics right now is the way that it actually atomizes people. The way that it separates us. It makes the exploitation invisible.
Yeah.
We can't see where the exploitation is happening. Like this computer. How many baby hands were mining minerals to make this computer? I have no idea. But I can almost guarantee that there was a baby hand involved somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
Capitalism is the acquisition and leveraging of property and monetary resources for the purpose of making profit.
And that's very ego-centered. The idea of profit is really interesting.
Let me read it. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Profit is the wealth extracted from the life force and labors of workers, usually across class lines. So the extraction of resources, usually from the lower classes into the upper classes.
Yeah, and that's part of the hierarchy. If you are born into or somehow manage to scrape your way up into the hierarchy where, from an ego standpoint, you are of a higher class and you can extract wealth from below, congratulations, you're looking down at people.
So you were talking about what's coming in the short term. I had something to add to that. I think we can all see it. It's we're seeing a lot of binaries. You're with us or you're not with us.
Yeah.
And we're going to see that increase as we progress these nodal environments that we can all play with the CMs that come in. So it's going to be binaries. Us, them, with us against us. And that's the closing of the cycle.
Yeah, 100%. So, and just in case, I want to repeat that. Roger was just talking about the nodal environment shifts that are happening and these binaries that are setting up. There's been kind of talk around like two worlds. Have you ever heard people saying, "Oh, we're going to 5D, and there's going to be two worlds occupying one place"? Well, this is kind of the way that the two worlds get set up. And here's the reality. We are still 7-centered consciousness in a 9-centered body. Can you surrender? Can your 7-centered consciousness surrender to this 9-centered vehicle? That's one of the big questions. And that's kind of, to me, part of the essence of deconditioning is that surrender to what's happening in this body. I'm an ego manifestor. I have 7 open centers. And having to surrender and take myself off the hook for all of those 7-centered themes, those 7 centers of themes that I just don't have, they're not mine all the time, has been quite liberating because it really has allowed me. Who was saying that? Talking about how your definition then begins to. Yeah. There you go. What's your name again? Shayna. Okay. Shayna said, going through the process helps to bring herself back into her definition versus operating out of those open areas. And for me, it has come to, especially, I have a lot of activations in my root, and one little activation in my head that I completely open ajna, and being able to release and decompress from that actually started to take me out of the competition game, which is weird because I'm an ego manifestor. Shouldn't I want to be the first and the boss? No. Come to find out, that is not what the center is about. When you get into it, it's not even about that. It's actually the end of that. Talk about some doors closing. I want to slam that particular door shut. So, yeah.
So I think we've set some of the context of what 7-centered business looks like. It's a lot of we're forcing people to do certain things so that we can expand, and this kind of idea of infinite growth. Clearly, there can't be infinite growth. The planet is limited. There's only so much you can do before the equilibrium is thrown off. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to directly compare and contrast this 7-centered business idea and the idea of 9-centered business. So where 7-centered business has a business model that centers around corporations. I think something interesting to say about corporations is that corporations are usually run by one person or a small group of people. It's not run by everyone who's inside of the corporation. it's run by a select few who are sat at the top. So then, I propose that within 9-centric business, you would have a more cooperative business model. You would have a model that actually directly involves the laborers, the people who actually know what it's like to have their hands on directly on the work. Yes?
And also the way it's set up.
Okay.
I'm like a private attorney general that's dove into like the law and stuff too. So corporations, the way they're set up is when they're set up, there's something called bylaws, and there's laws that are created by the person who's creating them, and then anyone that subscribes to that corporation has to follow those bylaws over even the statutory laws of the anything. Like they have to follow those laws. So because of that, it's brought this in the military. That's an order.
Yeah,
Like it's literally
even-
brought this inability to question things.
Even the people at the top of a corporation are actually trapped inside of the corporation.
Exactly.
That's what
Exactly.
that's what I just heard.
Exactly.
They're all
You're-
transoric entities.
Yes.
Yes.
Every one of them.
Yeah.
And you're chained into it to a certain
Exactly.
extent. The worker's motivation in a 7-centric business, fear, force, and pain are the motivations for the workers. Yeah,
Fear of not being able to pay your bills, right?
being forced to do things that you don't actually really want to do. The pain that comes with forcing yourself to do things that you don't want to do. The pain that's inflicted when you don't have enough money to pay your bills. The pain of hunger. Hunger, I've heard people say it explicitly. Hunger is a great motivator for workers, and it's really the most ghoulish thing I could ever, like, to say that I'm going to actually purposefully make people hungry so that they will come and do whatever I want them to do. So in the 9-centric business, you're looking at spirit, purpose, and fulfillment. The passion to do the work versus the desperation to do the work. Where the 7-centric business has a capitalistic philosophy, the 9-centric business should have a philosophy of relationships and intimacy.
Notice we didn't say socialism.
Yeah. knowing your fellow worker.
That's one side of the binary. It's the gray areas that are disappearing.
Yeah.
So it's the middle. We need to be in between.
Yeah.
Well, we need,
Yeah,
We heard you.
Yeah, the place to
Yeah,
occupy,
yeah,
right?
we
Being
get it.
able to, yeah. Organization. A corporation is a hierarchy. You have a boss. There's someone above you. There's someone who's dictating what you do. Versus a heterarchy. The flattest possible hierarchy, where the people who are doing the labor, those are often the people who actually know best about how to do the labor, what tools they're going to need. If you ask a painter, what tools do you need, they will give you a list. If you tell a painter, here's the tools to do the work I want you to do, you will actually stifle their creativity. Individual goals inside of 7-centric business. Selfishness for personal gain. The hunger for more, the hunger that I deserve. You might have heard the term temporarily embarrassed millionaire. I deserve to be a millionaire. I deserve to be the one on top. I deserve to be the slave driver. Versus selfishness that benefits others. I'm not going to extract wealth out of you. I'm already full of wealth. I'm full of wealth, and I need to protect the wealth that's inside of me. And when I protect the wealth that is inside of me, I actually benefit the tribe because I can give more. When work drains your soul, you have less to give to the people who are most important around you.
Now, I just want to say this is directly out of the Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix. We're just telling you, these are the keynotes of the Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix.
I heard the 55. What's really cool about the 55 is it's literally poking with histidine the neocortex. So as we enter this age, literally people's neocortexes will getting reprogrammed by their experience in the now.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's gonna be very quick that people can get reprogrammed once this is in. So I'm very excited.
And then the pursuit. The seven-centered business's pursuit is profit. Number go up, line go up. We want more. Nine-centered business. The pursuit of the nine-centered business is efficient resource redistribution, maximizing well-being. So it's not just I'm efficiently redistributing resources by itself. It is the idea that we're trying to maximize the well-being of people. Because when people are happy, the system is more efficient.
Well, and satisfied, we know that word. Yeah. And I think that, so I'm a manifester. I'm retiring, guys. Any other manifestors in the who else is here? We're manifestors, another manifestor. Yeah, we're retiring. And a lot of this shift that is happening has a lot to do with being able to have knowledgeable and capable projectors here to help. Because when it's time to direct that very interesting energy of the Phoenix energy that's going to be in our background frequency, there's going to be a lot of people who are not used to that energy being around, of course. And, I've heard some ideas that this could be very chaotic. I mean, who knows? And all of this is in preparation for a different being, okay? We are not here to pretend to be raised. We are here to be respectful and, honestly, to honor ourselves and each other as this frequency changes. But can we honor individuals? Because the 3420 will demand it. People will not take the same treatment as they did under the seven-centered system. Well, some people won't, the binary. There's going to be some people, they're going to be trapped in it, they're going to stay in it, that's where they're going to be at. Then there are the ones, all of you, all of us, and more, who will not be able to operate that way anymore. And all of this is in preparation for the new being. Now, here's the thing. I've read the descriptions of what the rave could be like, how they can be. We won't be them, right? We won't be them. But in a lot of ways, experimenting and deconditioning ourselves from the old modes of business give us an opportunity to set up a landscape where they can thrive. And where we, the binary, have the ability to protect these beings as they begin to show up. Because the rave will not be like us. They allegedly will not be verbal. They may be telepathic, right? They may have an advanced digestion system that is just operating completely different from ours. We're going to see something alien that we birth. Our human cells, we birth something that is different from us. And what is the environment that we bring them into is the question.
Something that I noticed, because basically I have a reality where everyone is in my being area, is in communion, and we are capable of speaking back, and so what I've noticed how we got to that space is there's something to do within the 4323 in the structure of communication. And so basically the 4323, how they can come off as a freak is because everybody's words have become relative to their experience. So I could be talking about frequency and self-love and somebody's like, why is this girl screaming about a radio? And to them, I'm going to be a freak no matter what. And that's within the 4323. So what I see having to happen, which is still within the cross of planning, is we're still learning to communicate. We're still learning to communicate and listen and actually ask questions about what the other is saying, rather than just assume that we know, because there is a dictionary that we all learned has a homogenized, thing of words in it. So somebody could be talking about how they don't feel worthy, and you ask them, well, what would worth look like to you? And they're like, oh, well, I need 5 cars, I need to be paid $20,000 a day. And I'm like, well, shit, I wouldn't be worthy in that. So but asking more questions about what people are saying is what creates that heartfelt trust over time that then individuals can build bigger things.
And I would like to add to that, like, I think from a type perspective, type to type, like, I'm a manifester, and it's really interesting. As I've gone through my experiment, I was introduced to human design almost 9 years ago, and I was just so interested in it that I just fell in it, and there I was. And what happened to me, because I feel like it happened to me, I was like, what is happening to me? I used to be what one might call very ambitious in a material sense. And as I settled into being a manifester, I had to start to come to grips with the idea of my signature. And I think your signature is about your individual enough. Right? My individual enough as a person who needs peace, y'all, my life looks so much simpler. I have way less shit. I had so much stuff when my life collapsed. Because human design did that to me. I'm sorry. I love it. Thank you so much. Everything I had built with my not self crumbled and was dismantled. And all I was left with was what brought me peace. My enough for peace is like, I need a garden. I need to be able to see butterflies. I need a clean environment. I need healthy food. And then beyond that, like, I can't start naming shit that I want. Like, oh, I want a 10-bedroom house. I don't. Who's cleaning it? Oh, now I gotta go get someone to clean it. I gotta get someone to clean it. I mean, I don't even, so I rented a car because we're here. I don't even have a vehicle. I don't need one. Not in my home, not where I'm at. I don't need one right now. So it's cool. And it's, because it's like, would I be more at peace with a vehicle or without the vehicle? At this point, I'm actually more at peace without the vehicle. So being that my peace is enough, satisfaction. I remember there was a Rob lecture, and he's all like, you could pay generators peanuts. Because satisfaction isn't necessarily a dollar amount in a bank account. Satisfaction is a feeling. Have you ever, I am a non-sacral, and being around a sacral person who's satisfied feels so comfortable. It's like, oh, is that what that is? Or when you think about a projector, now projector success, that's another thing, but being around a projector that's having a sweet life. Because for them, the enough is just like, my life is sweet. Like, what is a sweet life for a projector? I think projectors like the ability, they want to be appreciated. They want to feel that they can move around freely and that their energy, their doing is not connected to their energy expenditure. And so when
And
they
also winning. Let me put that on.
Oh, she loves winning.
I love to win. I'm not competitive, but I love to win.
Okay. Yeah, no, she loves winning. Like
Success.
success. I set out to do a thing. I got that thing. She feels great. I can feel the dopamine just rolling off of her. And then when I think about my reflector friends, because I don't have that many reflector friends, but I have a few. It is that surprise. And it's okay. Surprise though. I've seen some very, I would call them advanced projectors. I think Roger's one of them, who can look at things that other people might find disappointing and still engage with that surprise.
There's no polarity to it. Surprise is good. There's no good and bad.
Yeah.
It's seven-centered is good and bad.
Yes.
Period.
Exactly.
It's just, oh, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, however we would judge it, it's just that. So the enoughness, the enoughness is what we'd like to talk about. Yes, please.
I want you to talk about that too. I'm loving all this, but I want to piggyback off this conversation because I'm a sleeping phoenix, and I've been brought into institutions. It's really cool because I'm seeing institutions, specifically big universities, certain departments that are innovative in nature, are finding me and welcoming me in to work with them. And what I do is exactly what you're talking about, which is trying to create a culture of curiosity and help them create space in their nervous systems to not react and understand each other's reaction. And what's interesting is, which is what you were saying, operating still within the process of planning and getting people to slow down just enough to notice what's happening. But then the second step of what happens is, and I'm watching it as a trend now with my clients, and it happened with my individual clients before that, is that shit starts to break down. Because that innovation team is still creating from the not self. And as those patterns start to be talked about, people start acting strange and doing weird things and getting fired, and this thing happens, but it starts to create the space for that to happen, which is, when I basically what I know I'm doing is I'm creating space for things to fall down, which is a very hard sales pitch. So I don't ever sell that, but it starts to happen, and it's amazing to watch, just when allowing space for the wisdom of all the individual voices to start to be heard and to give people those tools, and then to watch, like, even in that team, it's a start to fall away, but so does the wasted energy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, oh my God, this is so good. Thank you so much for that, because the reorientation, the space for reorientation.
So I'm a 23-4, so I want to synthesize that. It's a surrender to form principle is what you're describing.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about for us. Surrendering to the form principle of whatever our signature may be, right?
Yeah.
Does that fit? If I'm understanding you clearly.
Surrender to,
The form principle is what we are. It's the synthesis and the design of the personality. It's the nine-centered surrender to the form principle of what we are uniquely.
Yeah.
So I shorten that to surrender to the form principle. Practical, easy, universal.
But a lot of people don't know what that means.
Understood.
And
But
it-
that's
yeah.
why I'm okay.
Well, you're among
I do.
friends, because we were like, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I love that.
That's it, exactly, and that was very simplified, exactly, because when you were talking about, like the people, it's breaking down, because it has to break down, because it's been built, just like my life was built on my not self. A lot of these organizations and teams and people have been, and by the way, Roger is a reflector, so I know you've been in these groups where you can feel how it's just been built that way, and you're like, yeah, I mean,
That's what it is.
it is what it is, yeah, but you can feel it, I'm sure, or maybe, I don't know. I've never been a reflector, so. But what I will say is, like, yeah, loving that you are coming in, it's very disruptive, but we need the disruption. Well, hell, it's coming. It's back to it is what it is. The cycle is coming, and you can already see how things are fraying at the edges. And those places where it's fraying at the edges are good for us, because it's allowing us to exercise. Fill it in with something new and exercise the idea of your own authority guiding you versus some rule that somebody wrote down somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm seeing it that people don't like interruptions of the pattern because they can no longer predict the next thing that's going to happen in the pattern. And they're used to, I need to be able to predict my next move.
Yeah.
The moment I can't predict my next move, I freak out.
Planning.
Yeah,
Planning stuff.
Yeah.
That's why we're seeing so much increase in privatized prisons that are funded by corporations that can guarantee their profits, and all the different shit that goes along with governments trying to find ways to fit people into boxes, into schools, into medical systems, into retirement centers, into every type of homogenized system, and that is all going to fall apart.
Sorry.
I mean, I'm ready for it, so.
I mean, and that's the thing, it's like, a part of it is, it's really seductive, because the cost of planning says, I can prepare. I don't think we can prepare. I'm ready, this is what I have decided to do. And it's really interesting, because Orion was talking about, like, preparing what I am preparing is my nervous system. I'm just preparing my nervous system. Y'all.
My nervous system is prepared for anything.
Well, like, I'm getting there. I have not arrived at my nervous system being prepared for anything, but my, kind of through my deconditioning process, it was like I was 3.5 years into studying human design, and this is not what happens to everybody, but I had to lose everything, materially. I was living more like somebody's fever dream of idea of what a manifesting generator should be, and I was burning myself, I burnt myself out. And I lost everything. I lost houses, I lost cars, I lost everything. And the first time I ever experienced peace was on a bunk bed in a women's shelter in hell, also called Las Vegas, Nevada. And I was sitting there and I was like, holy shit, wait y'all, peace in here? Which means that you can be surrounded by chaos and still have a nervous system that can be regulated. And I was like, wait, so I needed to know that was possible. And that's part of like the work now, like Orion, like I keep seeing you. And now I know what the hell what you're up to, so I love it.
I know this gentleman had a question.
Well, I love what you're doing because I've got the same thing in the sheriff's office. For the last year, I've been bringing this into a sheriff's office. So unconsciously, I guess, moving from Southern Center to, but they just had an officer involved fatality shooting 2 months ago. Went totally different than it would have went before. And they now have other agencies asking, what are you doing? And the sheriff is very vocal about the work we're doing. And it's beautiful because he's not forcing anybody to go. But where we're at now is he puts up we call it a HARA, puts up the sign-up sheet, it's filled.
Amazing.
So it's volunteer being generated, and it's beautiful. Yeah.
And that's that intimacy. Like,
So it doesn't have to be all business. I guess part of that is we talk about nine-centered business, but if this is society,
No, yeah,
and
because
it's
the
finding
business is
those
society.
ways to.
It's society's business because I know that. Yes, you, ma'am. I see you peeking. She was talking about basically the ways that governments exert certain amounts of control, and I really want to emphasize that where the government is a bureaucracy beast, it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of paperwork shifting in between people's hands. In comparison, a corporation, again, one person or a small group of people. A corporation is a dictatorship that exists inside of the government infrastructure.
which means they can very quickly do things, versus like the government is slow. We know it's like super slow. The speed at which a corporation can do like bullshit is kind of frightening.
Yes.
Bring something together and synthesize it a little bit. I heard talk of the nervous system, which is exceptionally important.
Yeah.
So, and then we talk about control in this matrix, whatever you want to talk about it as. They're binaries, right? How do you control any organism from an amoeba to a human being? Is you put it under stress, past its breaking point, you offer it a binary. That is the entire mechanism of control.
Yeah.
The illusion.
That is so. Well, you are really good at breaking it down because we talked about that, but
That's
that's
the reflection.
yeah, just so essentialized.
Yeah.
And that is it exactly.
Universalizations need to be practical above all else.
But so how do we get nervous systems to pull out? How are you guys helping people drop into their nervous systems, feel and integrate what's going on in them, or how have you guys seen it being
You
done?
can't actually, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him
Yeah.
Fractals are going to be fractals is a better way to say that.
Yeah.
4% of 4%.
That's what I'm seeing
We
too.
offer the information and the correct people are going to find us. That's how it works.
I'm even seeing that some people get it, they take it to a point, but they don't have the ability to take in the mutation. So they're the ones that identify with it, but don't actually.
It's all like for some people it's gonna stay up here. It's gonna be above the shoulders. It's mental.
Can you finish your presentation?
Oh.
Please.
Oh, yeah, yes. Well, I think we mostly reached the end.
But actually, yeah.
Yeah,
it was
we
really
have
fun.
reached the end. That comparison between the
No.
7 centers and centered business
I
and
have
our
some
centered
questions
business.
too. about
Absolutely.
The 9-center potential, like what we could potentially do with the aura types, like the aura purpose and things like that.
So I like the question, like, how are we helping?
Yeah.
First of all, I think that one of the things that you can do as a person who gets into the experiment is that, like, for me, I had to focus on myself. You're not saving anybody. I'm not helping anybody, and I'm a manifestor. I ain't guiding nobody either. I don't have not one projected channel. I'm not guiding. I'm really working on myself. So when I arrive as a manifestor with a regulated nervous system, I am having impact literally just by being, going through the deconditioning process. I personally work with manifestor women because I am in love with, I'm 1-3, so I'm in love with myself, and therefore I am also into them as well. And I see me, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to, be that and show up that way. I also am here to support people who do important work, like Orion. And you as well. Like if you're a person that does this kind of important work, we want to support you. And it's really funny. Great segue. We started a platform called My Spirio, And My Spirio is a platform so that people can find human design providers or people who do human design work alongside other modalities that help with nervous system regulation. Now, the part that we haven't gotten to yet, because we're still in alpha stage, we're super startup, like we don't have money or anything. We have been discussing amongst us, between us, how do we make this into a co-op? And so what we're looking for right now are our founders. We're looking for co-founders to come in with us so that we can start to build a platform that takes care of everyone and actually is operating off of a, the system where we've gotten relationships and intimacy, and we're using that to build a business and build a business that the manifestor can exit. Because someone said to me, "Oh, well, you're a manifestor, and you got the 4521, it's going to be yours forever." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds like a death sentence. I don't want anything to be mine forever. I'm not going to be here forever. This is a rental. This is a rental. I'm just here to have my peace.
You're just here to start it.
I'm just here to start it. I'm just here to find my peace, have my peace." And it would make me feel that when I look at people who do human design, like, I love y'all. I love people who are interested in it. I love people who do services with human design. And I want to show that love by opening this door. Mm-hmm. And no, I don't want to be pinned to it for the rest of my life.
There's something called private membership associations where you can actually have it set up where like people are paying a certain amount monthly and they're a member.
We need to talk to you after this.
Yeah,
I would love to talk to you because it sounds like you're very knowledgeable, and that is something that the way that My Spirio grows and becomes the hub for human design. Like there's conferences like this. I went to a conference before this one, the one up in Colorado Springs. How many people here knew there was a conference in Colorado Springs? Oh, because I told you. Okay. The fact is, those people didn't know about this one.
There was one in Salt Lake City too.
Yeah, that was Brainbees. I didn't know about that one until after it happened, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Not that I would have just been at conferences all this whole time, but the fact is, when we can, meet up with people who are able to discuss these things, to have this intellectual thing, because honestly, intellectual exercise is fun. I'm a human, I like it. But also to be in the presence of people. Because I'm going to tell you, like, I had an experience here. I've had several experiences that were just completely auric. They weren't about communication or communing. It was an energetic thing that happened. And I felt release, and I felt love, and I felt peace. And when you have the opportunity for that, now, gatherings like this also are opportunities for predators and terrible people. Shit happens. That's all I can say about that. So, I think we're all set. Any more questions or comments? I love y'all. And I want to say, one last thing. She's my daughter. I gave birth to her, which is lucky for me. Like, I get a business partner.
10 years ago?
Right?
You're old enough to have her for a daughter.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. It's amazing. Yeah. Like,
She's a prodigy, or you?
well, we learned about human design when she was about 16. And so, since 17 years old, she's been into the system. And being able to live in the house with someone you can talk to and actually feel those energetic shifts with has been so
And to observe the weird shit, because weird shit happens.
Magic happens. Absolutely. Magic, weird shit, however you want to call it. It's just like so much. So anyway, thank y'all so much for coming and with your wonderful questions.